I am so excited to share this interview that I did with Isabel Serna of Black Lamb Studio. She is such a talented illustrator, and in this interview, we got to talk about all kinds of topics, including dealing with rejection, how she built her career to include some major brand name collaborations, how relationships with other artists are everything, and pricing, all kinds of things we dig into. So I hope you enjoy this. Hello, I'm so excited to talk to today Isabel Serna of Black Lamb Studio. She is here with me today. You can find her colorful illustrations on products at Anthropology, Kate Spade, Huggies, plus a million other things, adorable things that she sells in her shop all over the place. She also has two books, Crazy Plant Lady and Dog Mom, with Workman's Publishing, and they are both so super cute. So I've been following Isa for a while on Instagram, and I have 1 million questions for her, and she so graciously agreed to answer some of them on film. Welcome, Isa. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth. I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Oh, yes. I'm glad to have a chance to connect. First, can you give us a brief overview of how you got started in illustration and product design?
So, I went to school for industrial design. I graduated as an industrial designer and started working as a luggage designer in like product design department, creating everything that has to do with luggage, like the zipper pulls, the wheels, the exterior look of the bag. And then I also had to create the interior patterns for the liners of the bag.
Oh,
And that's when I fell in love with pattern design. And by doing more and more pattern design, I realized I could do like more intricate icons for the patterns. So actually, kind of like pattern design led me to illustration because I started very like geometric, and I was kind of afraid to go deeper.
yeah.
And then I started to venture a little more into little icons for the patterns and flowers and plants and things like that. And I discovered that I could illustrate and I could draw basically.
I love it.
And yeah, that's how I started.
That is awesome. Now I have to go find some of that luggage because it sounds like it's adorable, right? That's
Well,
that's like
actually, that's the funny thing is working there led me to create my own company because the luggage that I was designing was very like black and navy and very it was actually
safe.
geared towards business people and air attendants and flight attendants and pilots and things like that. So I needed that like create I needed the creativity outlet somewhere else. And that's why I created my company actually, because I needed the color, I needed the pink, and I couldn't do that in the bags. So
I
that's
know.
why
I
I
I worked in
started.
house for a couple different companies, and I know that like wanting the outlet because they have the safe options and the things that are very commercially viable, and you just want to do like fun and super trend forward. And I
Exactly.
feel your pain on that one. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So I know that getting that experience, working in house is always, that helps you so much with product. Well, and you were an industrial major, so you obviously know product very well, but I think that's such a leg up in this industry.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. It gave me like a lot of experience on communicating over, like with factories overseas and sending spec sheets with all the dimensions and things for developing a product. So I do think it was definitely an advantage.
yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Knowing all that product stuff, it feels like an advantage. It's something you can kind of, I think that you don't have to have that. And I tell students you
Hmm.
don't have to have that, but it sure is nice. And I'm glad I have
Just
it.
one more tool under your belt,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess.
So when I first started following you, I don't know, maybe probably 3, 4 years ago. I'm not quite sure. One thing that I feel like you were sort of known for, or maybe it was just always on your Instagram or whatever, but was doing those city words, right? And they're like cities or countries, but then each letter is like, you're in Miami, right? So Miami, each letter is a little icon that kind of goes back to the city, which I love. Super, super cute. I don't know if it would be that project particularly, but was there any sort of project or sort of turning point that you felt like in your brand that when you were that you designed that sort of got a lot of attention, or maybe sort of suddenly you started to hit the tipping point of getting more client work or anything like that?
So for that project that you're talking about, it was just a personal project that I started because I love traveling, and I just thought it would be really cute to kind of marry lettering, illustration, and traveling all together. So I created that series, which I'm still working. I was actually doing another one yesterday that I'm gonna
Nice.
share soon. So yeah, anytime I have like a free moment, I still work on it, and that actually caught the attention of Apple, and I was invited to do like a demo on illustrating my letters and illustrating like a place at the Apple store. So that was really cool. And then something else that I think definitely kind of helped my career for sure was it was another personal project that I actually created for my shop. I started creating some illustrations of plants to do some prints that I was going to sell on my shop.
Hmm.
And that those illustrations of those plants caught the attention of my publisher, which I didn't know at the time. And because they saw these plant illustrations, I was offered the Crazy Plant Lady book, which that really was like life changing, career changing, everything. It was just like an incredible opportunity.
So exciting. I know. And if you guys don't know Crazy Plant Lady, you have to go check it out. It is super cute. And it's sort of it's filled with like quotes and illustrations and just, super.
Yeah, it's just like a humorous book on daily life and struggle of a crazy plant lady. And it's like puns and illustrations and obviously tons of plants and plant ladies and like everything that can happen in the life of a crazy plant lady.
I love that. Like, I think, personal projects are, I mean, you hear this over and over again, right? Do what you love, do your personal projects, and that can bring you work, and it's going to bring you work that you love because you're already, if you like to draw plants and then someone is interested in that, then you get to draw more plants, right? So it's
Yeah,
hard to
it's a
find the
win-win.
time. A problem that I find myself having is that, never mind time, I mean, just forget time, I don't have any of that. But even when I'm creating like for myself, I have such a strategic brain that I'm like, well, if I create this like just to draw for fun, but then could it be a greeting card? Like, I'm always like thinking of the next step. I need to like unplug and just draw whatever comes to me. But sometimes I really do just sort of like, oh, how could this be used for something else? Like, I'm always trying to multitask.
I mean, as designers, I think we're always envisioning whatever we're doing as something else. And I think it's a great exercise whenever I create anything to kind of have an idea why I'm creating it. Like, for example, the plant illustrations I was creating for prints, and they were just going to be prints. And that led to other things that I didn't even had in mind. So it's always good to have something in mind and to know that whatever you're doing is going to have an application, but not to be super focused on just that one application because, as you know, illustration and pattern design is so vast and so prolific that it can be used in so many other things that maybe you didn't think about it.
Yeah, I think that is good advice, to have that sort of end product in mind. And I give that same advice with licensing, because of course, yeah, licensing and patterns, it's like you create a pretty pattern and it could go on anything, right? But I like to try to have something in mind when I'm designing my licensing portfolio of what is this really going to go on. almost never actually makes it on there unless it's like a greeting card or something
Exactly.
like that. It usually ends up somewhere else. But if you don't have that, like, what could this be for? Sometimes you're just like, I've gotten into the trap of sometimes designing something that I just think looks cute or could be good on Instagram. And then it's like, okay, and that's fine,
I
sometimes,
was
but
gonna
like,
say, yeah, that's fine too, but you definitely for your portfolio, for your Instagram, it's fine to just design for designing and just to get your creativity flowing and your hands moving. But once you're kind of creating an actual portfolio that clients are gonna look at, then it's definitely better to have some sort of end
plan.
product in
Yeah, a
mind.
little bit of
Yeah.
a plan, right? So when another thing from when I first started following you, well, all this time you've been collaborating with like amazing brands. Yes, I remember that Apple. I remember that Apple show. Like just following you on Instagram, I pretty much know everything about your life from Instagram. I know that it's all out there on Instagram now. But I remember the Apple thing, and one thing that really you have a lot of collaborations with big recognizable brands. And Kate Spade, I'm so obsessed with Kate Spade. They're on my goal list to work with Kate Spade, and you've designed for them too. And when I feel like there was a time a couple years ago when I first DM'd you and was like, have you, sorry to just come out of nowhere, people send you DMs out of the, like, I feel like I know you, but you never talk to me. But and I was like, have you ever exhibited at a trade show? Because it just seemed like, you had all these connections, and I personally have never exhibited at a trade show. And I was wondering if that was like the missing piece or something. And as you told me, no, you had not. You're like, oh, that sounds like fun. I should do that, shouldn't I? And I was like, I'm so glad to hear you say that, actually, that you don't have to, that you can have this kind of success without exhibiting at a trade show.
Yeah, and that's something that I always wondered too. Because for years I had major FOMO looking at all these people going on those trade shows, and it seems like you definitely do a lot of networking and you meet a ton of people, even in the industry, just
Yeah.
peers. And I definitely feel like I was missing out on that. But I do I will say that I think it's not necessary to be successful or to attract buyers. It may give you more exposure or maybe even like a shortcut to put your products or your designs in front of clients, but there's other ways to do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say you're proof of that if you haven't. So sort of on that same idea, for some of your bigger collaborations, well, it sounds like Workman Publishing reached out to you because they saw what was on your Instagram. Do most people find you like via Instagram, or do you reach out to them, or what are your kind of like main points of that people find you, or you find them?
I would say Instagram and Pinterest. I'm super active in both.
Oh, good to
And
know.
I think I actually added a little prompt on my contact me page to see where people find me because I was really
Oh,
curious
that's
to
good. Good
know.
idea.
And it's a mix of Pinterest and Instagram. I think there's like a luck component. There's no question about it for me. I mean, your work has to be good, of course, but I do think that I've been really lucky. And it's just like an X factor kind of that your work is just in the right place in front of the right set of eyes. Because when I started getting these collaborations, I didn't even have that many followers. It's not like I was a huge brand or anything, but there was definitely a lot of interest. And most of the large collaborations that I've gotten have come directly to me, or maybe someone that I worked with and moved to a different company. And
Mm.
then that other company also approached me when she was there. So I would say definitely, no matter how big or small your client is, do your absolute best, because people move positions, they go work for someone else, maybe someone larger, maybe your dream company. So you always want to leave a great impression with whomever you're
I
working with.
love that advice. That's excellent. Yeah. And it's so much about so much about relationships. You know, today I was just talking, I was on a call for my course and talking with students, and someone was saying like, do you keep your work that you've designed back and not show it on Instagram so that some of your clients like get first dibs kind of thing? And I don't do that really. Like I don't have that kind of relationship with, I think some artists maybe have that like relationship where it's like, you know that that client is going to want to come to you and see your newest work, and so maybe you save it. But like me, I just put everything out there, and it's like you never know who's looking, right? And I don't have a huge following at all, and I have gotten work through Instagram as well. So um you know, and I thought that was a myth 2 years ago. I was like, oh, I'll never, because I'm not going to have 100,000 followers anytime soon, so I'm just not ever going to get Instagram work. But I have, so you know, it happens.
Yeah, I do think creative directors are definitely looking through Instagram, Pinterest. They're using the internet. I also have LinkedIn. I don't know if it helps, but just have your work in as many platforms as possible, because
Yes,
again, you never know who's looking, and
100%.
and mm,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Definitely. LinkedIn, I need to update it, but I always recommend people have like some sort of art thing going on in their LinkedIn. People think, oh, it's so corporate, but of course, making those you can make connections anywhere, you know? So,
yeah, and
um,
like going back, sorry,
oh
going
no.
back to your question, I do use LinkedIn to look up people that I want to work with, to see if there's an email or if there's a connection that I know. So I'm also very active on LinkedIn, trying to snoop on
Oh
people that I
yeah.
want to collaborate with and seeing how I can get their information and things like that.
Yeah, that's an important research technique for
Hmm.
sure. That's something that I think every artist has to dig into LinkedIn and find what they can find.
For
Um,
sure.
so besides big name clients, and I'm sure many smaller name clients, and you have two books and you have a shop that's amazing. I saw your new Valentine's coming out. Guys, go to her shop. I'll leave the link in the profile, but
Thank you.
Valentine's, so cute. And before COVID, you know, I saw that you did that Apple event, and I think you did some other live illustration events. So I'm tired thinking about all of that. Like that so much. Um, my question, I guess, is how do you balance all of those things, which they all sort of need their own like attention and love to grow. Like you can grow an amazing career in like illustration events if COVID goes away.
I
But
mean,
it's sort of its own thing, right? And you can grow to an amazing shop, but like you have to find those customers. You know, they're all different customers, I guess, or all different audiences that you would be targeting. How do you juggle all that?
so it definitely, sometimes it looks like late nights
Mm,
working a lot, but sometimes I just use whenever I'm not working on a client project, I'm working on new products for my shop. So it's just kind of balancing the, because as you know, our work is very, it comes in waves,
yeah, that's true.
and there's periods where we're slower, there's periods where we're super busy. So I just try to always have something to do. So if I'm not working on a client, then I'm working on my shop. If I'm not working on my shop, probably working on a client. And it just kind of, it's like a yeah, it just I complement the time. Is not, I mean, sometimes I am working on everything at the same time, but in general, it's just more like, I once things settle down with client work, I work on my shop, and it's just kind of like the waves come and go for both.
Yeah, I think I have that. I in the past have had that balance with licensing and freelance, right? So for me, freelance, you know, client is client work. It's people, you know, reaching out to me, and then licensing is me designing whatever I want to design for my portfolio. So I think that's like, you know, I can go back and forth between those two. If I don't have client work, I can do licensing work. That's in the past, right? Right. 2020, and like like I have like 2 kids home a lot, and it's just, and now
I
with
don't
the
know how you
class,
do it.
start your surface pattern business, like that's a whole different audience to, so I mean, I'm trying, but which is sort of around that question. Do you usually license your designs to brands, or are they more on a commission or outright sales, or like sort of free, like what tends
I
to be
think a
your
little bit of everything.
everything?
I
Yeah.
used to do mostly commission work, like maybe 2 years ago. And I got in the mindset of I really want to like grow my licensing portion of my business, because I have a ton of designs that I was just creating for fun that were just sitting there, and I would definitely wanted to
Use it.
grow that
Yeah.
aspect a little bit more and just kind of have the two, marry the two. And so lately, like last year, I would say it's definitely a combination of two. I still do a lot of commission work. A lot of the big brands, they want like exclusive
Yeah.
designs and things like that. But for example, the Kate Spade, my first Kate Spade, actually the three Kate Spade designs I've made are were existing, and they bought them outright. They wanted the design, forever.
Yeah.
But they were already there, that they were part of my portfolio. So it's just a little bit of everything, I would say.
I love it. I love it. Um, what? Oh, so I am not totally sure if this is true, but I'm pretty sure that this is true. That I remember a few years ago, a friend of mine was saying, and I think this was before your book came out, your first book. I think she was saying that she was in like a sort of an artist accountability group with you. And, she's like, oh, do you know Issa from Black Lamb? Like she's getting a book. Oh, it's so exciting, And so I know that, like, so I'm so huge on connection, and I love the idea of an artist group, and I want an invitation to yours if it's still going on. But I feel like a lot of times new designers, when their Instagram starts growing and they see that everyone is another artist, it seems like, or their newsletter or whatever, and they're getting all this like other designers following them, but not art directors or whoever. I know that can be kind of a bummer, but how do you feel about, relationships with other artists? Have you ever done any collaborations? Like, do you have such an accountability group still? Like, what
I
have you seen as the
do. I
benefit?
do. And it's honestly been a huge part of just my life, not even my
Yes.
career. Because as you probably know, this is a very lonely job.
Hmm.
We're just sitting here behind a computer. We almost never have even
I
this
know.
like
This is why
human
I'm like, I'm going to
interaction.
interview people because then they have to talk to me.
Exactly. So, because I mean, I was even kidding with people when the pandemic started. I was like, my life didn't change at all. Like, my
Yeah.
life is
No.
exactly the same. So, yeah, it is a very lonely job. So, having a group of peers that just cheer you on, with whom you can have a conversation, and we ask each other questions, we talk about an upcoming project, how much should we charge. So it's just like a very open support group where
Oh,
we
I love it.
we all kind of understand each other because we do the same, and we also help each other kind of come up again with pricing or with terms to use for a project, based on everyone's experience. So it's so valuable. Go find
Yes.
your group, definitely,
Find your accountability group.
everyone.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna try to get in on yours, but I have a few different people. I don't have like a big group, like I have my biz bestie, and I have like some other, and I have lots of artist friends. Lately, I've been like, anyone who comes in my inbox, I'm like, hey, do you want to get on a chat? Like, but I need to like make it all a big official group that I can, get with, because yes, I love that. And I also recommend, yeah, like any kind of accountability and that support is just so important. And I
Yeah,
love it.
just like it's a source of information, support. It's just good to have other people to talk about all the things. Like I'm really happy that you're doing what you're doing, and I see a lot of people talking openly about like pricing and
Yeah,
how to price your work, or how much to get paid for this or that, because a lot of that is very taboo almost still.
Hmm.
I think a little bit less lately, but definitely it has been taboo, and it's so hard to find information online, and everything is so subjective. So when you have a group of people that are kind of at the same level, some maybe more advanced or more experienced, or some less, but kind of have all those points of view, it definitely helps a lot and gives me a lot more confidence whenever I'm quoting something or I'm talking to a potential client.
Yeah, that is so, so important. And pricing has been a big thing that is, it's such a mystery. It seems like, yeah, lately people are getting to be more open about it. And I know we were both involved in Alana and Katie Lumiere's new pricing guide that they just came out with. I will put a link in the description, but this is a great guide that they put together, which is like a ton of case. I mean, it gives suggestions of how to price your work and what to base it on and all that stuff. But also the really interesting thing, because I'm super nosy, is case studies of different
That's
artists in
amazing.
what
Yeah,
they
loved
are
it.
charging for various things. And I'm sure you got a copy of it as well. And it's so fascinating, isn't it? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it
And
was
as
incredible.
I wrote back when I got the pricing guide, and they used it as a testimonial, so you'll see my face on the page. But I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm going to raise my prices tomorrow. Because, it's like, you just, honestly, I have gotten to a point, I have a couple of friends who do a lot of freelance work. Like I do mostly more freelance work than licensing. I do get work from licensing, but freelance is a big part of my income. And I have a couple of friends who are just like in the freelance grind. And I pretty much thought I had like topped out on my pricing. Like sometimes I do project, but sometimes I do hourly. And I was like, I think I'm as at the top of my hourly. And so I asked my friend, and then she told me she makes like $10 more at an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, so there are clients out there, like, what am I doing? So you just need someone else to tell you. Like, I mean, I feel pretty confident in general with my skills, and I like to raise my prices, but at the same time, if you think you're at the peak, you don't know until someone says, oh, actually I made 500 extra dollars on that project, and you're like, someone will do that,
Yeah,
let's
it's
get it, let's
pretty
get
eye
it.
opening. Yeah, and just to see that clients do have money. We sometimes cut ourselves short because, or sell ourselves short because we are thinking of clients' money with like our own pocket, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not how it should be. If I'm frugal, that doesn't mean that our clients are going to be frugal too. Once you see the the pricing that we saw on that workbook, it is eye opening to see that clients do have the budgets to pay better than what sometimes we think is fair. So
Yeah,
it's definitely an opportunity to reconsider and kind of see
push
where
yourself,
we
right? And we have
push.
to give ourselves, I think, it's really hard when you're running your own business, and especially if you're starting out and you don't have a full client load, right? You don't have work all the time. You don't want to, when someone does approach you, you don't want to like lose out on that opportunity, because you're like, oh, this is like my first or second or third client project, and I really want to get it. So I want to make sure that I'm affordable and all that stuff. But you know, I'm not really sure what the answer is for beginners. I feel like for beginners, you kind of just have to, maybe you do charge a little bit lower and you're not quite right. But like once you start to get, the thing is, I think there's a lot of designers in that like medium range that have somewhat regular client work, but they're still in that beginner mindset of entry level money. They're still feeling that scarcity because they've worked so hard. Like I know personally, I've been in this industry for a very long time, but I've worked for myself for 8 years, which I guess is a long time, but it's not as long as the time that I was, working in-house. But it took me so long once I started working for myself to get enough clients that it was like regular business and I wasn't always scrambling to find work, that you still have the like post-traumatic stress from that, you know what I mean? So you don't want to like let go of that and lose what you have by saying, hey, actually this year my prices are going up, or you know, whatever, and then you lose a client and then you're like, oh no, now I have to. So I feel like there's like those, when you're in the middle, you still remember how hard it was at the beginning and you don't raise your prices, and I'm just like, raise your prices, people.
For sure. For me, also pricing comes down to how bad do I want to work with the company and what's the value for me besides the money. So, for example, the testimonial I gave on the workbook was on a project or my collaboration that I did with anthropology. So, at the end of the day, it may not be a lot of money, you know, upfront, but my name was attached to the collaboration. It wasn't like I sold the design and they were doing whatever with it. It was anthropology or Black Thumb Studio for anthropology. So that for me, that had
That's, yeah.
incredible value, and it has brought me a lot of business and a lot of exposure and a lot of recognition. So at the end of the day, you kind of, as a designer, you do have to know where you draw the line. Like, this is my, you know, your hourly rate, and you know, you can't go, you know, you have to live, so you have to, you know, you have to have that very clear. But also there's some, for me at least, there's like a little bit of flexibility on how bad do I want to work with the client, or is it something that I really believe in. Like, I recently worked on a company, on like graphics for a local like Miami company that are doing just something that I really believed in. And like lettuce, they grow lettuce, and they have amazing community outreach and things like that. So of course, you know, I understand that they don't have a huge budget, and I definitely wanted to be a part of it. I definitely wanted to help them out and make sure that their brand is cute. So, you know, I charge them maybe less than what I would have charged a large corporation. So, but that's just up to me. And that's kind of, we need to feel that power, you know, when do we charge less, and not have the price be driven by the company, but be driven by us. Like, what do we think is fair, or what do we think, um, you know, how much is that product worth it for us?
Yeah.
Do we even
And
want to
have to
work
be
on it?
willing to walk away if that means it,
Oh
which is
yeah, of
the
course.
hard bummer part at times, you know, but like, cause you know, we've all been there where it's like, just not, I would like to have this project cause I have time in my schedule and it seems fun, but you can't, and it's not going to work out. So as I've been talking about this whole interview, I stalk you on Instagram, and everything on your Instagram is so awesome. You always, you know, you'll tell what's really happening. It's not that you don't, everything is all pink and perfect, but you know, we obviously know that social media is like the highlight reel, and you know, that's not what is always happening. And I was wondering, I mean, I certainly have these examples, but do you have any examples or stories about projects or pitches that didn't work out as you had hoped that they would?
Yeah, like I was telling you, just recently I had a couple like big proposals that I for sure thought they were gonna happen. That, you know, and I kept in communication with the company, and I was like shortlisted, and I was like the last two, and I
Oh
was like, oh my
no,
gosh, this is happening, and
that's
then
so
it didn't
frustrating.
happen. But again, you can't let that discourage you, because that
Yes,
rejection is part of what we do. And
totally is.
I have a very hard time like accepting rejection, and I'm a perfectionist, and I have a very low frustration threshold, I guess. But this career has definitely taught me to just accept the no's and
Mm-hmm.
put them aside and just
Mm-hmm.
keep
Mm-hmm.
going. And you know, for every rejection also comes an opportunity, even if we don't see it right away. So I'm trying to think of like another specific, um, but I just, it's not like specific examples. It's just more like I
Plenty of
and
things
that
that
I can
didn't.
think of.
One that I talk about, or I have talked about at least one other time, but so I have a fabric license with Camelot Fabrics, and that has been great. I'm super happy to be able to. I think I have like 10 collections at this point because I've been with them for 3 or 4 years, and so every quarter or every 2 quarters, I release a collection, and so I get it approved with them, and then they sort of debut it to everyone, whether it used to be at Quilt Market, but just release it to their like quilting companies and whatever, and then, or quilting retailers I should say, and then they release it like 6 months before it is really going to ship to stores. And so then people put in orders and then they ship it to stores. So usually, like when I'm saying on Instagram, oh, my new collection, most of the time it's like not going to be in stores for another 6 months unless I'm specifically saying like you can buy it right now. But anyways, so a couple of years ago, and now I had been working with them, maybe did like 3 collections or 4 collections with them at the time. And they picked up it was a collection, luckily, that I had already had in my portfolio. It was a tropical collection. And they debuted it. And then like 6 months later, I was like looking on their website. I was like, oh, you don't have that collection up, that I did. And they're like, yeah, I'm really sorry to say, basically not enough people ordered it, so they canceled the whole thing. And I was like, oh, that like stung, because I was like, oh, the company believed in it, I liked it, like, I was just like, oh, I didn't even know that could happen. Basically, I was like, if I've created it, like, even if it wasn't, super successful, I thought like, oh, I'll just get less royalties, not like they'll actually cancel it. But it was bad enough that they actually canceled it, and I survived. So,
Yeah, I kind of had a same or similar experience with my fabric collection. It actually, I don't know the specifics. I don't know if it didn't do well or if it did well, but a lot of people that launched collections with me kept launching with them like every, yeah, like you said, every 3 months or every 6 months or whatever. They have like several collections and they never call me back. So I feel like maybe it's because the designs didn't do as well. But again, it was an incredible experience. I would love to do more fabric collections, and you just can't get discouraged. It's just part of everything, and you can't hope to hoard all the projects, all the clients. Like it's also
yeah.
good that it just goes around and
Totally. Well, any fabric companies who are listening, Isabel is available. Guys, get on it. She's not tied down to any
nope,
contracts. Get that
nope.
girl now. Get some plant designs or whatever. Oh, so many cute things I'm sure you could do. But sort of along the lines of what we were talking about, I wanted to jump into my bonus question, because I do love to talk about pricing. I love to be open about it, but sometimes not everyone wants to say all their business out in the wide open internet. So I have asked some of these questions in more like private videos for subscribers and stuff like that. But my bonus question is, we did sort of touch on this a little bit, but one thing that I've heard a few times is that, aspirational brands like Crate and Barrel and Anthropologie and all those type of things, they're not always the most lucrative to work with. Obviously you don't have to call out any of your clients or anything like that, but how have you found the pay structure of like bigger national brands compared to some of your smaller companies that you've worked with? You can hear Issa's answer, and we also dive further into how long it took her to make a livable wage as a self employed designer in an exclusive video that is in my Surface Pattern Boss Toolkit, which is a resource library that is totally free. Sign up at elizabethsilver.com/fresh and hear what Issa has to say about this question. Now, stay tuned for wrapping up the interview. Thank you so, so, so much. This has been
Thank
awesome.
you.
You guys, check out, first of all, Black Lamb Studio on Instagram. I'm going to put all the links in the description and everything, but dog mom from Workman's Publishing, crazy plant lady. Go to her shop that has such adorable stuff. And if you happen to, have some fabric contracts lying around, go check her out. Pretty much, she is so lovely and her work is so much fun. And you guys should
Thank
all be following
you.
her on the gram so you can come back in 4 years and be like, okay, so I know everything about your life. Well, thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much.
Isa. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks again to Isabel Serna. Be sure to check out the description below with all her links and check out her shop. Go buy something adorable. And while you are following her on Instagram, be sure to follow me at esilverdesign and also sign up for my Surface Pattern Boss Toolkit, which is a free resource full of exclusive videos and other resources and guides and PDFs and trends for you to check out.